Hello everyone. Welcome to Graphic Design Studio Tools and Techniques. This video series will help you navigate the manual tools and tasks that you will use over and over again throughout your 3 years of the graphic design program. Chapter 1, Tools Overview. This chapter will introduce you to the manual tools that you will be using in the graphic design program. In Chapter 2, we will go more in depth about how to use them. Your first consideration is the drafting table. Your classroom is full of drafting tables similar to this. They function as an important foundation to many of the tools you will be using, and we will be discussing them as we move through the series. An important follow-up to the drafting table is the Tsquare, because they go hand in hand. This is a stainless steel Tsquare. We can see one end has this brace, the cross on the T. This is designed to go against the edge of the drafting table. When we push this firmly against the edge of the drafting table, we can slide it up and down, and we maintain a perfect square edge all the way across the length of this blade. Now if we wanted to draw horizontal lines across this board, we would just move the Tsquare up, draw the line, move the Tsquare to another point, draw a line, and we know these lines will be parallel. So a couple of things to remember with the Tsquare. First of all, you want to make sure it's always pushing against the edge of the table, so that you have a nice square effect to the Tsquare. If we don't push there, it could wander up and down. The other thing to think about with the Tsquare is, depending on what's comfortable for you, or if you're left-handed or right-handed, personally, I'm right-handed. I like having the top end of the T on the left of my board. So you could go to both sides of your drafting table, both edges of the drafting table, left or right, have that smooth, flat edge for a Tsquare to write up and down on. A handy companion to the Tsquare is the set square. Let's take a look. This triangular looking device is called a set square, and it's meant to be used in combination with the Tsquare. When I put my Tsquare at the edge of the table, lock it in by pushing hard against the table edge or firmly, I can now put my set square on top of the Tsquare, and I can use that to create perfect vertical lines on a substrate. I can move it back and forth, but the key point of the set square is it guarantees that I'm getting a perfect square corner here, and I can also use it against a board to check to see if I have a perfectly square board. Next up, we have the cutting mat. The cutting mat is an important tool that is used for just what it sounds like it would be used for. It's a mat for cutting on. When we're using our utility knife, which is extremely sharp, if we didn't have a cutting mat while we were cutting a substrate, whether it be paper or illustration board, any kind of cuts where we go through the board were passed through to the surface below. A cutting mat has a special type of surface called self-healing. It's a bit of a soft substrate. It's kind of rubbery, and it takes the blade nicely. It'll take a blade gouge and sort of self-heal it. It works extremely well. It also has the benefit of not dulling your blade prematurely, and it gives you a nice clean cut because your blade doesn't travel all over the place. Now, one thing we have to remember is we must never ever cut on our table surface. Our drafting table has another wonderful substrate on the top of it. It's also a rubbery type of substrate. It works great for drawing on. It's great for taping paper to, doing all kinds of work on, but we must remember to never ever use a utility knife on top of a bare drafting table. because those gouges in here won't self-heal, will ruin the table surface, and it's very expensive to replace. Your cutting mat comes in different sizes depending on which one you buy. This is a super cheap one. It's adequate for smaller papers, smaller jobs. Personally, I recommend going with a larger one. This one is about 22 inches by 18. It also has the built-in feature of a grid at half-inch intervals here. So it's just a little more versatile, and especially when you're cutting larger paper, larger substrates, we've got more space to work with. To make accurate cuts to paper and other substrates, you will need a good utility knife. Utility knife is a high quality knife with an interchangeable blade, which you will have to replace fairly often because the blades get dull, and it's extremely important to always cut with a sharp blade. Utility knives are a pretty standard item. We've all seen them. Some people call them box cutters. You could get them at Canadian Tire, Staples, any kind of craft store. You can even get them at dollar stores. However, I don't recommend buying a cheap utility knife. This one is made by the company Olfa. It's the leading utility knife in the graphic design industry. They're sturdy. They will outlast a cheap utility knife many times over. And we also need to get replacement blades. So you could get a package of replacement blades specifically for that knife. We'll look at how to change the blades in another episode. But one of the key points with a utility knife is that it's a quality instrument. You always want to work with a sharp blade. And the other thing is that we always want to make sure when we're cutting on a cutting mat and not directly on our drafting table surface. You really can't get by without a utility knife in the graphic design program, and you will need spare blades. So don't hesitate or hold back on getting one of these. You have to have one. The type of ruler you use makes a big difference. Let's look at why. There's something special about this ruler, and that is that it is stainless steel, but on the back it has a cork backing. This soft cork backing allows you to use the ruler in such a way that it doesn't drift around on you so much on a surface. We can hold that ruler in place and it stays there quite well. The other thing to consider about the ruler is that it has both imperial and metric measurements. So we've got our inches on one side and we've got our centimeters and millimeters on the other side. You will be dealing with both sets of measurements as you work your way through this program. Yes, we need pencils, but this pencil is maybe different than what you're used to. So what is a mechanical pencil? We know what a traditional pencil is. A mechanical pencil takes it a step further. First of all, mechanical pencil has something, functions as a lead holder. We call it a lead holder because it takes these graphite sticks and holds them in such a way that they can be fed out bit by bit from the pencil and sharpened very accurately using a dedicated sharpener. They are far superior to regular pencils for the kind of fine detailed work that we need to do in terms of measuring and getting an accurate line. Pencils like this standard one here are not good for that. They have inconsistent tips. They are okay for drawing or sketching, but we don't want to use them for our precision work, so we'll just get rid of those. Of course, go ahead and use them for drawing. Now with the mechanical pencil, they come in different colors. Some are black, some are blue. The important thing is they're all going to hold these same replaceable leads or graphite sticks, and we just hold the end of the pencil or squeeze it in a bit, and that graphite stick can come right out, and then we can put a new one in and release that plunger at the end of the pencil once we've got the stick fed in there. And then the sharpener, which is very precise, we just let enough of that graphite stick out of the lead holder or the mechanical pencil. I go into the sharpener and I just rotate like so, and it gives us a super precise cone-shaped tip to the pencil. And then I'm just going to stick it in this little area here, which is kind of like a piece of felt that takes the loose graphite off. To conclude the first chapter of our video series, just a quick discussion of 3 important accessories that you will need. Just a few remaining tools to discuss here, and we'll be looking at how to use them more in depth in our next chapter. Masking tape, we all know what that is. It's worth getting decent masking tape. A simple white eraser. White is important. When we erase things, we don't want to leave traces of pink or other colors on our paper. The quality of the eraser counts. Staedtler makes the best ones that I've worked with. This device is called a silicone brayer or roller. You will use this when you're mounting work. A clean workspace is super important, so we use a dusting brush to keep our tables clean. We can remove or brush off shavings of erasers. They always leave something behind. We could be cutting paper and leave fragments of paper around. At the end of a day, just make sure, or the end of a class, make sure you clean off your table for the next person to come along and use it. You don't want to be coming into class and see a dirty table, and you don't want to leave a table like that for someone else. This concludes Chapter 1, Tools Overview. Please join me for Chapter 2, where we will cover tool care, maintenance, and safety.